your mind can convince your body of a lot of things. If you want to build your self-belief, first, ask yourself what it means to you. Even though I knew, and actually it was a hard pill to swallow, that Maya, you aren't good enough yet, but you can get better. The thing that I had to remember is I am enough. The best athletes in the world, take your Michael Phelps, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, they used visualization religiously. If I were to give 3 tips about really life-changing self-talk.
Welcome back to Little Lessons from Big Hearts, everyone. I'm your host, Anais, and I am so excited about today's episode and for you to be with us today. We are going to dive into a conversation that's around visualization, mental fitness, and it's really going to change the way you think about yourself, your success, leadership, but also self-belief. Self-belief is something that is so important to me, and it's really changed the way that I live my life, the way that I've grown in my career, and I know that it's also the same for our guest today. So without further ado, we're here with Maya Raichoora, who is the UK's leading mental fitness and visualization expert. She also recently signed with Nike, the giant fitness company, on being their mental fitness, first ever actually, mental fitness trainer. And Maya has coached and worked with thousands of people all over the world on hacking their brain to be more confident and have more self-belief. And before you're like, whoa, this is too woo-woo for me, this is all based on science and neuroplasticity. And the famous people like F1 players, Djokovic, Serena Williams, Beyonce all use this. And so today you're going to be able to use it too. Welcome, Maya.
Hi, lovely to be here. I'm excited.
Excited? Out of 10?
Oh, 12.
12? So am I. I feel like we need to start with how I found you, because I found you through LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And I think we just had a mutual connection who commented on one of your posts, and it popped up in my feed, and I was like, interesting. And then I went to one of your mental fitness sessions where you kind of do a guided visualization and go into the science behind what that does for the brain. And I remember leaving that session with so much energy because I visualized like a bigger, better me and my goals, and I reconnected with that I walked all the way from London Bridge at like 9 p.m. to West London where I lived, and I just had the greatest evening. So thank you for that.
No, of course, I love that. It's a fun event. I think when we think about training the mind, it's always very much like you've got to do it on your own, or you get an app and you just you have to be somewhere very quiet. I think the event completely flips that script, right? That you are, you walk in, it's loud music, it's house, there's lights, and the energy is very different. It's a bit like a spinning class, but you are doing it for your brain. And I don't think it has to be boring. I think it can be really fun, it can be social, it can be curious. So that was the aim with Mental Fitness Live, and I'm glad you felt that.
It hit the mark. And I think also the community, so everyone in the room had the same will to grow, and I love that people kind of shared their experiences as well. So no, I had a great time.
Good.
So visualization. Let's start a little bit like ground basis. What is it? What are the different types? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so visualization is the process where you are creating images, environments, and feelings in your mind before they've happened. Now, I think in the world we live in, we hear the word visualization a lot, and actually a lot of people associate it with manifestation, or that's where it gets its woo-woo kind of like stigma from. But at its core, visualization is a psychological and neuroscientific technique that can rewire the brain. And the basis of it is that because the mind really struggles to know the difference between what's real and imagined, when you are mentally rehearsing, your goals or who you want to be, or perhaps it's using it to see an emotion and dissolve it, then you're basically manipulating your brain and training it to act differently, to think, feel, and perform in a different way. Now, really, the skill isn't like new. I'm not like bringing it from, myself, but if you go back to like the 1900s, it was so prominent in the sports arena, but also in medicine. So when you hear any elite athlete, and even if you watch the Olympics, you'll see a lot of people closing their eyes, mentally rehearsing their routines, or perhaps seeing themselves winning, etc. Because what it does is you prime the brain and the body to do that, to give yourself the best chance of, achieving your goal or whatever it might be. Here's where it gets interesting though. Whenever I mention visualization to anyone, people are like, oh yeah, it's that thing where you see where you want to go and you see the vision. Cool, that's one type of visualization. There are 5 types of visualization, but most people don't know that.
Interesting.
So we've got outcome visualization, which is where you are seeing the results of something in advance. So it might be you winning, seeing the goal already happened. It gives you that motivation, that resilience. Then you've got process visualization, which is where you are making an activity or a task easier, faster, or better. So athletes would use that to process, let's say, a golf swing, or it might be how I use it to mentally rehearse the way I want to public speak. So it's not about the goal, it's about me and my actions I'm doing. Then we've got creative visualization, which is where you are using mental imagery to make an emotion or a feeling or a sensation tangible. So it's very good for disease, health, but also managing emotions. Then you've got negative visualization, which is where you're seeing the worst case scenarios or perhaps challenges, but seeing yourself overcome them. Again, athletes use this a lot for their performance. And lastly, we've got explorative, which is probably the most unknown visualization technique. And I learned about it in very old books.
Okay.
But it's what the likes of Einstein, Walt Disney, and Nikola Tesla used to create, to problem solve, to ideate. So if you take Nikola Tesla, he created the electric coil in a visualization in the 1900s.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you can use your brain like a whiteboard. And so, you might even have a problem and you'll close your eyes and you'll see, okay, what if I did this or storyboarded it that way? It taps into a part of your brain that not a lot of people can do.
Can anybody visualize that last one?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. I think the cool thing is that some people will naturally like, 1 or 2 of them and will find others harder. That's so normal, right? It's a bit like when you go to the gym, not everyone loves this particular machine or cardio. It's the same sort of thing. Your brain's all different. But yeah, explorative, I've used it with, let's say, clients who, let's make it really simple. He was creating it like a presentation. Just was like, oh my God, it's gonna be so tough. I don't know where to start. Very simply, we closed his eyes and I made him see a blank presentation, completely blank. And then using his mind, he thought of ideas of what he could fill it with, whereas images, words, etc. By the end of our visualization, he had everything he needed to just do it. Because he'd done all the hard work here, right? Consciously, we get distracted, we get overwhelmed, our emotions do whatever. But in your mind, you can just have that blank screen and create.
Do you know what's so interesting? Because everything comes from our brain anyway, right? So it's almost like you give your brain the time to hyper focus on something, and therefore, instead of being distractive, can kind of create it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
in fact, one of the funniest ways I've used, not funny, but interesting ways I've used explorative visualization is, so my sister got married really recently, and I love to dance. I do a lot of Bollywood dancing, and I had to choreograph 9 dances, okay? And I love it, but I was very busy at the time. So what I did is I would close my eyes and I knew the song we would be doing it to. So I'd play the song, and in my mind, I would create all the moves. I'd create the whole dance in my mind before I even stepped into a studio or stepped into actually doing it physically. And what it meant is that because I'd repeated it again and again in my brain, when I then was physically doing it, I already knew all the moves because I'd done it so many times here. And if we go back, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and imagined. So my mind has literally thought, you have done this dance about 30 times already.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can just be so much more creative. You can actually speed up those processes, but also it taps into things that we wouldn't normally do, just consciously speaking.
I actually saw a study where a group of people were just visualizing lifting weights, and by the end of it, their muscle mass increased.
Yeah.
So that's just again, the power of the brain I don't know how that happened,
So think of it like this, that because the brain does struggle to know when something's happening or not, this really looks at how the brain and body are connected. And so if we do a very like simple exercise, if you want to just close your eyes for me, and I just want you to imagine that you are holding.
And if you're listening, please do this as well.
Yeah, you can hold a lemon in your hand, like just a half a lemon, and it's got a yellow tough skin. It's you can already kind of like see the juice coming out a little bit. And I want you to now just start smelling it. So it's pretty fragrant. You can smell it's quite tangy, a little bit sour already. And now take this lemon and I want you to squeeze it. I want you to squeeze the juice into your mouth. So like drop by drop, taste every bit of the lemon. It is so sour. It is so sharp. It's like your saliva is going a little bit weird, that tingling in your cheeks. Just really taste it. Okay, now open your eyes for me. Okay, so how did your body react in that situation?
Like my saliva is going, like I can, my saliva is like, yeah.
But you're obviously not holding a lemon.
No.
So you can just see how connected the mind and body are. The thing that you're thinking, your body reacts. Your saliva goes weird. It literally thinks you're doing it. And so when it came to the weightlifters, what they found is that because the mental training can be so vivid and so powerful, your muscles react. And I guess I've experienced this firsthand when it came to using visualization for my health. Because I was doing it on a cellular level with like my pain, with my symptoms, actually the changes in my body, incredible. Because of how connected it is. And that's why you need that awareness and that language of how your mind and body speak, which is really important.
That is incredible and insane that our brains are able to do that as well.
They did this experiment with people who are having, is it ACL surgery? Like on the knee.
I think it's ACL.
Yeah,
yeah.
surgery. And they took a group and half the group got the surgery. The other half got taken in and they thought they were having the surgery, but the doctors didn't actually do it. But what they found is their body, their knee was actually recovering.
Is that like the placebo effect?
To some extent, yeah. And so if we actually like research that and see the incredible stuff that's happening there, you realize that your mind can convince your body of a lot of things, So whatever you're repeating, whatever you're seeing all the time, your body's listening. It really is listening. Those cells are listening to everything. And so, yeah, there have been countless experiments that show that. And I think it's pretty insane. In fact, one of my favorites as well is this poison ivy one, where they took a group, poison ivy, they got rashes for sure. And then they took the other group, did the same thing, and they also came out with rashes. But it wasn't poison ivy.
That is so insane.
But they thought it was. And that's the key, right? It's like if your mind is convinced about something and it believes it will make it happen. That's literally it. Especially in the body as well. It's not just like other stuff. It's also your body.
I'm the biggest believer in the power of your subconscious. So you can rewire your brain to be confident. We're going to go a little bit more into it today. But obviously I've done your mental fitness sessions. I've done your visualization, so I know how it works. But for someone listening who's like, I've never heard of this, what is the process? Is it a meditation? Is it a guided meditation? Tell us what it is.
Visualization is done in a meditative state. And that's because it's more effective when you are relaxed. So when you have cleared your mind, you have come to a state of like presence, and then you visualize, it's great. And so the way, I've taught you visualization, but also I do it, is I'm seated, I've got my eyes closed, and I spend about an hour in that situation, but I'd say all you need is about 10 minutes a day. Now, the interesting thing is, as you get better at it, you can do it anywhere and everywhere. So I do it on the tube. Sometimes I even do it walking. And that doesn't mean I have to close my eyes, but you can actually start using it in different situations. And when your capacity is so good, then you can actually do it in certain activities. So like one of the tennis players I work with, he will, whilst he's playing, still be visualizing, like even though his eyes are open. And so because you get so good at the technique, you can then use it in that way. But what I'd suggest is, you want to be in a quiet position on your own, seated, eyes closed, because you block out all the senses. You need to go inward for it. Yet it's not a meditation, because we're not slowing down. I'm not asking you to just clear all your thoughts. I'm asking you to use your thoughts, but in a productive way. So in a different way, using them for a particular outcome, which is different.
You said tennis player.
Yes.
Would you say that all the major athletes in the world use this technique?
They used to. So the best athletes in the world, take your Michael Phelps, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, they used visualization religiously. They were seeing their performance, they were seeing their goals, they were so disciplined at it. Today, I often find that younger athletes, the newer athletes, they don't use it. They're not taking advantage of it. Partly because I don't think the education has actually come down from other teachers, other psychologists, but also the priorities are always on the physical, always. But if you look at what athletes say, they always say at that level, the game is 90% mental. In fact, Conor McGregor says it's 100% mental. Serena Williams says it's about 70, 80%. So you're generally good at the sport, right? At that level, everyone's good at the physical game, but the thing that makes you different and that will give you the edge is your mind. But yet, most of the training is physical. Most of the time is spent on the physical training, the techniques, which is great. But if you are not using your mind, you are at a massive disadvantage. If you're not training it with visualization, with mental rehearsal, you're not giving yourself the best chance to make your goals happen. So old athletes, they're great at it. These days, I find that people aren't doing it as much as they should.
And within leadership positions, so if you're a leader, CEO, or founder, I can imagine that visualizing where you want to go and then using that to take all the steps backwards is just the most important tool. Are people using it? Should they be using it more?
Yeah, I mean, so I went into this company and I was like, what is your vision? And they're like, oh Maya, we've got that all covered. And so they showed me their vision statement on the website. Cool. What does it look like? Do your employees know what it feels like to get there? So, every company in the world has a vision statement on their website, but that isn't going to make the difference. The question is, can you really see it? Can you hear it? Can you see the impact of it? And do each of your employees also, are they in that same direction? And, again, I wish more leaders were using it because they have to be visionary. And the best leaders are the ones that have a very strong vision and they see it every day. Because if you think about the world we're in, think about how quick it is we get distracted. So quick, right? Something else comes up or we lose focus. And so in that way, the brain won't know what to focus on.
Yeah.
But if every day you're showing it, this is my vision, especially for founders, because obviously it's a tough gig to be a founder or a business owner, then more so than ever, that needs to be the thing that you wire into your brain every day. But then you take people like, the founder of LinkedIn, Oprah, they have used visualization a lot because, and it's only when they're successful do they say it. Then they're like, oh yeah, I visualized X or I visualized this in my team.
Jim Carrey as well, I think.
Yeah. So I have a bit of a problem with that one because the story that has gone out is that I visualized a $10 million check and then I got it. And I was like, oh God, this is where the manifestation thing comes in, right? Yeah. People forget about the hard work and the action that goes into it. It's not just about visualizing it and then sitting on your sofa doing nothing. It's about, yes, keeping that very strong vision and then taking bold actions, no matter how small, towards it. So my motto is big vision, small acts.
Because I'm a believer in manifestation, but I also think that it takes work. So it's I've done vision boards since 2020. And for example, before moving to London, I had a goal to move to London. On my vision board, I'd put a building, a typical Parent Trap style building, Parent Trap is the whole reason I moved to London. And then I obviously had to apply to jobs in London and do the work, and I got it. But I think there's something energetic that I believe in, which you raise your frequency, you are more optimistic, you believe in bigger things, and then these things come to you or you notice them as well. But of course, it takes hard work in the beginning.
Look, I'm also a believer in manifestation. I am. But I think language is super important because I also, know that everything in this world is energy, right? And you feel that. But for people to really start making it part of their routine and practicing it, I don't think that language is going to help.
Yeah.
That's my difference. And when you look at your vision board, right, there's so much science behind a vision board. And I'm pretty, like, there's a lot of studies that show that, you know, you're at least 30% more likely to achieve your goal if it's there, because you see it every day, every single day. Why? You're value tagging.
Yeah.
When you wake up, you put value on that thing you see. And so in the world, you'll start noticing it. You'll start seeing opportunities that can take you there. And your mind is like a sponge, basically. Whatever you feed it, it's going to respond to. So if you feed it that same vision, that same idea, that goal you want every day, cool. It's going to be like, this is a massive priority for her. I want to make sure we make it happen.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that and you're just leaving it to chance, then your brain's just going to be a bit frazzled, right?
It's like that study when you imagine you want to buy this specific car, then you end up seeing the car everywhere just because your mind is like,
theory.
the red car
exactly,
theory, because
exactly.
your mind sees it everywhere. Part of mental fitness is also self-belief or like self-talk. Do you use self-talk?
I think, well, everyone does, right? Everyone is always talking to themselves in there. I've had a very long journey with self-talk, very long journey. And there's so many parts to it. And I think like there's two key things we need to focus on in self-talk. One is the negative self-talk, so what's not serving us. And one is the self-talk you want to replace it with. But that's not as simple as people think. It's not just about being positive all the time. And I remember when I was young and like, you know, going through some challenges, I saw a lot being like, you just got to stay positive. Just, you know, and we have that, right? Lose a job, just like positive vibes only, or you have a breakup, just quickly move on. But what I found in that process is I was finding it like I felt guilty when I wasn't being positive. And I'd panic if I had a negative thought because it would make me feel like fear it so much.
Yeah.
And then I realized like the point isn't to just have positive thoughts all the time. The point is that can we develop a more positive relationship with our thoughts? And this is where I think self-talk is fundamental because it's dynamic. And so if I were to give 3 tips about really like life-changing self-talk, 1, I always ask myself, would you say this to your best friend? Always. We are so hard on ourselves. We are so critical of like little things we do. And if my best friend came to me and said, I'm not good enough, what would I say to them? I wouldn't just be...
Talk.
Exactly, right? So what would I say to my best friend? That's something that I always lead with. 2, when it comes to replacing your self-talk, there are 3 key ones you want to look at. Motivational self-talk, instructional self-talk, and character self-talk. Motivational is the one that's like, you can do it, like, go on, girl, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Instructional is, it's not so much about being positive. It's just about, like, breathe, take a step, and go for it. It's
steps.
Yeah, it's about the process. It's helping your mind just get through something. And then finally, character self-talk is the one you hear a lot of, like the affirmations, like I am strong, I am healthy, etc. All of them won't work for everyone. So learn with them, like experiment with them, see which ones really work for you. And so that's really important when it comes to that. And then the last thing I'd say about self-talk is let's remove the pressure of always trying to stay positive. And there's this incredible parable. This grandfather is talking to the grandson and he's explaining that like in humans we have 2 wolves in our brain. There's a bad wolf that is always putting us down and judging us and criticizing, and then there's a good wolf that is like encouraging us and motivating us. And the little grandson was like, well, which one wins? And the grandfather was like, the one you feed.
Yeah.
And I like that. It makes you think like, okay, am I going to feed this today or no? And sometimes I still feed it. We get into those spirals. It's okay. But the majority of the time, who are you feeding? Think of it like that.
I love that. I think I read that in Jay Shetty's book.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. I haven't seen that.
Something that it makes me think of is like self-esteem. So I do a lot of empowerment coaching because I'm a confidence coach with people. And what I've noticed at the course, I've coached like women and men and of different ages as well. At the core, when there's a limiting belief, it can be in one area or many areas. It's always linked to not feeling like you're enough. Have you noticed that in your coaching as well, or like visualization coaching, that feeling of not being enough or not feeling like you can achieve it blocks people from visualizing.
Yeah, for sure. I think Tony Robbins says that the two core beliefs that limits humans are I'm not enough and I'm not loved.
Ooh.
In my coaching, I definitely noticed that especially with high performers, it's both of them, the good enough and the not loved enough are very prominent. And it does affect you, right? Whether it affects your relationships, it might affect your insecurities, your confidence, all of it. So it's true, yes, those are the core beliefs. And even for myself, right? For me, it was definitely the one about being enough or good enough specifically. Now, I actually will say that the solution isn't just to be like, I am enough and just keep repeating that until, whatever. I think you've got to understand why, for sure. You've got to understand where it comes from.
Of course.
And I think it comes down to a choice as well. Like, ask yourself, do you actually want to believe this anymore? And if you ask that to a lot of people, it's like they're not sure. And it's because we get so familiar with that past and that kind of feeling of victimhood, and it's comfortable, right? It's comfortable to not feel enough. It is.
One of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's not like our failure that makes us most afraid. It's like our biggest potential.
Yeah, isn't that Coach Carter, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's like it's not our fears that scare us. It's like our light that is like
our biggest potential. Our biggest
and I like
light.
that. It's true,
and it is so true.
Yeah,
because it's not familiar.
Exactly that, and you don't know what's going to look like, and you don't, and I get that for sure. Which is why it's so much. We find it easier to stay in places that are comfortable, even if they don't serve us.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. And like, we've all done it. Like, whether you've stayed with a partner because even though you know they're toxic, and you will still stay there because it's familiar.
Yeah.
Humans want safety. Our bodies want safety. So, even certain emotions we get addicted to, whether that might be jealousy, anger, sadness. When it's really familiar, it's nice, even stress, we'll stay with it. We'll cycle it again and again. And that's why you've got to ask yourself the question, do you actually want to change? Are you prepared to realize you're going to enter some, uncertainty and places that are unfamiliar? But do you have enough faith that actually on the other side it's going to be worth it? You've got to ask, what's the bigger risk? You staying where you are, or you entering something a little bit new here?
Well, staying where you are. If you're listening. Yeah. I want to go into self-belief a little bit more. Would you say that self-belief has helped you get to where you are?
Yeah, I think self-belief is the reason I am doing what I'm doing, for sure. And I think self-belief means something different to everyone. And I think before you build self-belief, you have to kind of unwire a lot of beliefs as well. But here's the thing, I think self-belief is a skill. It's not something you just have or don't. No, I actively will build my self-belief every single day, because you do get knocked down, you do get rejected, you do feel a bit crap sometimes. And so self-belief is a full-time job. Like, you don't get days off, right? You have to show up to that work every single day. And we all do have a second job, and we've got to invest in it. It's a bit like a bank account. Like, you've got to keep depositing in it so that in the moments where you really need to lean on some sort of a faith, you have it. It has to come from you.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, I mean,
that's so true.
But that's how I think of it, because sometimes it's not that you need it all the time, but there are going to be moments where we've got to level up. We've got to feel like we can do something. But also I think that's why visualization has been so crucial in building my self-belief, because for me, if I can see something, I'm like, I can do this. And most of what I've achieved in my life has not happened ever before. It's not really been possible. And so I've used my mind to create that vision, that picture. The more I do it, the more I'm like, okay.
I've done it before.
Exactly. This is actually possible. And that's why I think some people are like, oh my God, it's delusional. But it comes back to that thing of, if you look at any champion or person who's made impact in the world,
you need delusion.
Yeah, and they were creating things that had never been done before.
Yeah.
And that's not always it. Sometimes self-belief is asking the guy you like on a date.
Yeah.
Sometimes self-belief is, getting on stage and doing a presentation. Sometimes self-belief is having a hard conversation with your dad.
Yeah.
Sometimes self-belief is sitting on your own and just sitting with your thoughts. It comes in so many sizes and ways and arenas of your life. And I think a big part of it is exercise it as much as you can. Try it. And like I said, it's a skill. So invest in it like it is a job that you are like, I'm going to show up to this every single day, every day.
What's one of the things that you had in your mind that you visualized and then it happened? So you said there's a lot of things that like had never been done before, right?
Yeah, so to be fair, I think the recent thing with, well, actually everything, like even Mental Fitness Live, which you came to,
yeah,
like that has come from my brain, right? But let's take the Nike thing, for example. I saw on social media like 2 years ago that this guy had become a Nike trainer.
Like sports trainer?
Kind of, no. He was like in the wellness space.
Okay.
And I immediately felt quite envious. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I want this.
Yeah.
And initially, I did feel not good enough. I felt like, oh my God, why him, not me kind of thing. Then I was like, okay, but Maya, what if it could be possible for you? So went straight to them, found every possible contact I could have.
Did you have your company at the time?
Yeah, like kind of. It was very early. Did every possible thing, and I was still in mental fitness, so you know I was still known for that. But told them about it, pitched it. They were like, "No, sorry, like mental fitness, not sure what that is." Like blah blah blah.
Too woo woo.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay. So and obviously, like my confidence took a massive hit.
Yeah.
But I think like I then from that day would just basically see myself as a Nike trainer. And it would be like doing events. It would be like, you know, being part of their family. It was like seeing more of the impact I could make. And I kept seeing that tick everywhere. I was just like, okay. And I kept going. Like every time I was in London, I'd go into the store and be like, hey, like, you know, have you changed your mind yet kind of thing? But they hadn't. And then 2 years later, and I kept this vision so strong. I mean, I'm about to say like, oh, it just happened. But it happened because I didn't stop like taking action towards my vision.
Yeah.
I didn't just sit down and like not do anything. And so there have been so many things like that have happened.
And so today, what are you doing with Nike today?
So today I'm their first ever mental fitness trainer, which looks, well, to be fair, I'm going to start shaping it how I want it to look like. Yeah. So now it's kind of like when the work starts. But, you know, it'll be a lot more events. It will be reaching new audiences. It will be bridging together physical and mental fitness because everyone only does basically physical fitness. But then like in maybe a different context as well is like, you know, the first time I ever used visualization was to learn how to walk again, which is a completely different thing, right? Like I had been told by so many people that unfortunately like, you know, yeah, you will be ill for quite a while and you are too weak to go to uni or walk again. And I remember that if I listened to that and that became my imagery, that is what would happen. And it was happening. But if I chose to see something different and actually process and mentally rehearse like what it felt like to walk again and what it felt like to go to a lecture and just sit down and write, then I was giving myself a better chance. And then the more I did it, I was giving myself the best chance. And that's what the repetition can do. So pretty much everything in my life, whether it's from managing emotions to my bravery, to my confidence, to my belief, comes from the images I create in my mind and what I repeat, for sure.
And you just mentioned it now, but how you got into it was when you got told that you were really sick and that it wasn't going to change. And then you used that process and now you're healthy. It's easy when you get a message from someone who is an expert in their field, like a doctor, to just believe them blindly, right? Well, of course, why would you not? How come you didn't?
I did for about 6 years, right? I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. And I took all this really hard medication and I just lost all belief, all confidence. And I think because I used to be a very bubbly and driven girl, to then have that all taken away was so scary. Because like your whole identity is gone, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't feel strong. I didn't want to be strong anymore. I was so crippled and withered in every way possible. Why did I decide differently? You know, I sometimes still don't know. I'll always remember that I got told I had to have surgery, otherwise I would not survive, barely, because my colon would rupture and things like that. And I just was like, what if there could be another way? What if? And when I asked myself, like, what was it about that? I think in those moments, you draw upon a strength that you never knew you had, ever. but you've got to like be willing to do that. And I do think, you know, in some of your lowest and most suffering moments, you will find it.
Yeah.
But I so easily could have let that, you know, continue to be my story so easily. But I didn't. And you know, it was a fight. It really was. Because even after I made that decision, I felt so, I guess, guilty for making maybe a wrong decision or not taking medication. It was so scary. But that's where, like, yeah, my belief had to just be bigger than anyone else's. It had to be so big, so big. Like, I had to kind of overdo it, but it's so possible. Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of back to that saying, like, believe in yourself because no one else will, or, like, more than you. Like, you need to set the bar for how much you want people to believe in you.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening and is struggling a little bit with self-belief, or maybe is in a similar situation to you when they're having some health issues or not getting what they want to get out of life, what is your advice to them?
If you want to build your self-belief, first, ask yourself what it means to you. You've got to define what it means. It can't just be this like fluffy thing where it's like, yeah, like I believe in myself. No, like what does it actually mean? What does that mean for you in your life? Once you understand that, then you've got to ask yourself two things. What in my life is not serving me in order to get there? And what in my life is serving me? And that can sometimes be like, you know, people, you know, surrounding yourself with people who do like lift you up.
Yeah.
It might be activities that make you feel really alive. And so really asking yourself who and what is serving that and who and what is not. Then it comes to the rewiring bit. And I think this is really cool because like your beliefs are simply programs in your brain. That's it. They're just roads here.
And sometimes they're beliefs from other people, like your parents,
Most of the
your
time.
family, most of the time, yeah.
Like, you know, if your boss or your teacher said to you, oh, like, just why are you so bad at maths? Or, oh, unfortunately, you're not great at reading, or you're not great at public speaking. You're going to hold that here. And then you will find everything in your life that will help you reaffirm that belief. That is what we're so good at. We just take everything to keep giving that evidence, right? And our brains are negatively biased. So naturally, we will attach to it. So you've got to take that conscious decision to be like, okay, if that's not what I want to believe anymore, what is it that I want to believe? And with self-belief specifically, it comes down to that self-talk. It comes down to seeing what you want. So whether that's who you are, but also the things you want to do. And lastly, it's a bit of experimenting. I'd say like self-belief is also built on showing yourself that you can do things.
Yeah.
And I think to do that, go small, go very, very small. So even if it's like one conversation or like asking someone on a date or purposely getting rejected by something so you can know how to build it back up again. Go really, really small and build it up. Again, think of it like that bank account.
Go to lunch by yourself.
Oh my God, for sure.
Solo travel. If that's a little bit further down the line, like
and keep depositing in that bank. It's like a vote for yourself, right? And even if you have quite a lot of belief for yourself, you can always have more. You'll always need it, right? So keep depositing in that bank. And yeah, I'd say those three things are going to be really key.
I have a notes, like on my notes app, that's called Signs and Good Vibes. And anytime there's something that makes me like really happy, someone gave me a compliment or said something, or I did something that made me feel really proud, I write it in that list, and that list has become like so long.
Yeah.
Because it's just reminiscing on what you're grateful for and what you're proud of yourself for. And my tip would be to like have that list, and if you're feeling a bit down, just remind yourself of like how far you've come and everything you've done, because you will do something every day that you could be proud of yourself for.
There's this sports psychologist who talks about the I know it list.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's basically just this thing of like, he was like, write a list of things you definitely know about yourself. So it's not about that I can do this, I will do this. What are the things you know? And it was interesting because in the list, it would be like, you know I'm a good friend. I know I can, do this task. I know I am a healthy person. I know I like to go to the gym. And what he found was that when you write, I know, it's naturally giving you that like confidence and self-belief. That's also a good example of like trying to just write something down where it's like, especially when you feel really low, what do you know about yourself? What do you really know?
What are your top 3 I knows?
I know that anything I set my mind to, I can definitely make it happen, no matter how long it takes. I don't care if I'm like 90 and I'm still going.
Yeah.
Like, I know it.
Yeah.
I know that I love to learn. That's one that I really do know. And often when I don't feel great, when I learn and I like consume good things, not just like social media, I do feel better because it gives me that like, you know, change. And I know that spending time alone is one of my favorite things.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'd say those are my 3. What are yours?
First is the same one. Like, I know that I can do anything that I kind of set my mind to, and that also comes from a place of love and not ego. Like, that is kind of my mindset on things. So I know that if I have a big dream, a big plan, a big idea, it will happen. At some point, with maybe not that person, maybe this person, like, it will happen.
See you when we're 90, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's do this podcast again at 90.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
I also know that I'm really good at connecting with people. So I understand people really deeply. I don't know if it's, well, no, I do know it's like a sense of intuition or just like deep understanding of people. So I connect easily with anyone. And I also know that I am driven by kindness and love. So I want to do things from a place of like helping people. I'm not a people pleaser, so I know how to set boundaries for myself and be kind to myself. But if I do a big engagement campaign in a company, I will always think of the impact it will make on the person, because I want there to be like kindness or building self-belief or building self-love at the core of it, or other things like connection. I mean, the list goes on, but it's like, yeah, kindness is kind of the drive in there.
I love that. That's great.
If someone's listening and has big dreams and just has this little feeling of like, ugh, am I good enough for this? What's like 3 or 1 like top tip from you?
When I first did this, I was definitely not good enough. I wasn't. Like, and I shouldn't have been. But the point is even though I knew, and actually it was a hard pill to swallow, that you aren't good enough yet, but you can get better.
Yeah.
The thing that I had to remember is I am enough. So taking out the good out of it.
I love that.
Yeah, like I really, because I've grown up South Asian, I mean, I still am, but good enough was always the thing, always. Because if you're not good enough, you didn't do well enough at school, etc. I took out good and I was like, without any of my job, people, positions, am I enough? Yes. If I could work on that bit of it, that's all that mattered. In situations, even like today sometimes, like, okay, am I good enough to scale my company from X to Y? Not yet, no. I need to upskill. I need to meet the right people. I need to still learn. And so not being afraid, not being good enough has been amazing. I'm like, I can happily admit that like, yeah, I'm not good enough right now. But I'm always enough. I'm always like secure in who I am and like, you know, what I'm trying to do and my uniqueness. And sometimes it means failure. But I've tried my hardest to let go of this idea of good enough and instead focus more of my energy into feeling enough.
It's not about being good enough. It's about being enough.
Yeah.
Because you are enough no matter what, because that's just you being you.
Yeah, and like, you know, people then say, am I smart enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I like kind enough? Like you could put so many different words in that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the labels we put in massively. You know, the reason I actually had this realization is because when I was younger and I played a lot of competitive badminton, like I wanted to go to the Olympics. I wanted to like become the best in the world. And I could never let go of the fact that I didn't make it. I could never let go of it. I don't know why. Then this one day, it was in COVID, I was sitting on the badminton courts I used to train on. And I was just like, it's okay. You actually just weren't good enough. You weren't good enough. You weren't good enough to be the top in the world. You weren't good enough to make that team. Like, oh, okay. Instead of just like holding on to this thing of like, oh, I needed to be the best, I was just like, it's okay. Like you actually weren't good enough. Let's accept that.
And you know what I believe in? You weren't supposed to be good enough in this so that you would be good enough for this today, or like remove the good, because things always make sense in hindsight. When you don't get the door, when the door doesn't open and you try a billion different keys and you try and like bulldoze it down, it doesn't work. It's because it's not supposed to be your door. Yeah. But it will make sense years later and you'll be like, of course, I never wanted that tiny door anyway. I wanted that big one that I walked through.
Yeah, or build the damn door.
Or build it.
Like, I don't care about another door. Go build your own city. Like,
that's what I had to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't like, you know, when people say just take every opportunity away, I'm like, absolutely don't do that. Like, make your own opportunities. Be intentional, like, get creative. So yeah, all the doors, they're gonna slam in your face. They're gonna hit you and like smash
and you're gonna cry. And you are.
Crushed.
We've all been there. But then you're like, now it makes sense.
Yeah, there's always another door somewhere. Somewhere there's another door. Me and a window.
Or bricks.
But yeah, I think, and that's a hard perspective to have. But something I always say to myself is like, look, something bigger and better is coming, and just show me how good it gets. And actually recently had some really bad news and kind of like a rejection. And I was like, Maya, something bigger and better is coming your way. It has to be.
Because it is. Always is.
Always.
And
E.g. this.
You can talk about that when we're doing it at 90.
Exactly, with our walking stick.
Oh
my gosh.
We're coming towards the end. I've loved this so much. I have some rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
But before going there, is there anything you feel like I haven't asked you?
The only thing I'd say is sometimes when like they hear all of this stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, but where do I start?
Yeah.
Firstly, like even listening to this is a massive start.
Yeah.
And I'd say take whatever you found in this, kind of interesting. Maybe it's triggered you, maybe it's been of curiosity to you. And just start with that. Start with that as the theme and look into that. Do more research around it. Understand it a little bit better. That could be your starting point. Start with something you're interested in or something that's challenged you a little bit. That's all I'd say.
And if it triggers you, that's because that's the first place to go.
Yeah, which people will avoid. So be brave here.
What's a life lesson someone has given you that stuck with you?
Feel it to heal it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I always used to suppress my emotions. Now I'm emotionally fearless. And it's because I have that life motto, which is feel it to heal it. If I feel something, I will literally feel it in my body. Emotions are the language of the body. So I feel it and it releases. So I don't hold it in me anymore. So feel it to heal it.
What's something you thought you learned, but actually you hadn't?
Probably, it's not that I haven't learned it. I think it's that I could do more work on it. Is that comparison.
Yeah.
I think it's always there. And like, as much as I think that, you know, I feel like I'm on a unique journey and I know it's my own, like I know it is, but I still struggle with it. And because it keeps popping up, I'm like, okay, you need to do some more work here, Maya, which is fine.
And I think that will be a lifelong thing. Like I have it, everybody has it. And I think especially when you're building your own door, it's like easy to start to compare because that's like the little voices wanting to hold you back. But
exactly, it really is.
When was the boldest time you followed your heart?
It was, I made a very hard and rash decision to come off all my medication. I came off about 40 tablets and all my infusions. And I wouldn't recommend this to people, but in that situation I followed my heart because I knew my body enough. And so I went against all logic, I went against all of that, and I just really, and it was such a scary decision, but I did it, and it's the best decision I've ever made.
Where did that kind of like knowing come from?
It felt aligned. It felt like my head, my heart, and like my soul kind of thing was aligned. It felt like that. Like, it was like a knowing. No matter what anyone said to me, I was like, it just feels right.
A knowing.
Yeah, a knowing.
I'm a big on gut type. Of course I am, but like...
Did you know there's actually 4 types of intuitions?
No.
There's gut, so mine's not my gut. I don't trust my gut. There's full body, which is like when you might get goosebumps. There's also head, which is when your head gets clear. And then there's chest, so your chest will either expand or contract. So everyone has, like, each person has a different kind. Gut isn't generally the most dominant, but...
I would say it's like here. So maybe like
chest.
chest and gut combined. Interesting. I'll think about that one. Yeah. And who was the last person to inspire you?
Well, definitely you in this conversation. Who's the last person to inspire me? I recently met these 2 friends. They're a couple, sorry. And they've been like married for like a very long time. And one of them was at my house and they're going back to their house. And she was just so excited to see him again. And it inspired me to have that childlike joy and curiosity for everyone in my life. Still, no matter how long you know them, whether it's your parents, your friends, whatever, like be that beginner's mind, be that childlike curiosity, be like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see them again or whatever, right? See them like you're seeing them for the first time. And that actually really inspired me. It stuck with me a lot.
And when you're excited, like, let yourself go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of being like, that's going to look a little bit off. So the other day, I just put my headphones on and I was walking around in West London and I was listening to like such a good song on repeat, of course, like that song for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I just was so happy I wanted to skip around. And I did. And I don't care who watched.
I love
just
that.
because I was like, just let it fill you with even more joy and even more happiness. So I love that.
Well, you know, that's one thing I grew up, obviously grew up here, but my parents are from Kenya. Whenever I went there, just on the street, you've got kids dancing, you've got families, like they don't care. Whereas here, if anyone's even like smiling on the tube, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? And so I think it stops us from being ourselves, or like our childlike selves, for sure.
Yeah, and feel things.
But yeah, feel it to heal it.
Feel it to heal it.
Every day, all day.
Thank you, Maya, so much for being here, for your time. I know you're super busy, just flying, jet setting all over the world.
Always time for you.
Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. I mean, like, I feel like you had to. If something triggered you, go a little bit into that. Maya does Mental Fitness Live.
Yeah, so do Mental Fitness Live every month in London. Kind of like, a massive flip on what it means to train your brain. Also have an online community, so that's really about having a platform of different visualizations and online stuff. And then also, like, I just love having a chat or talking about it, as you can probably tell. So always feel free to reach out at maya.mentalfitness or obviously LinkedIn. But I just think that conversation needs to change.
But yeah, follow Maya, follow Little Lessons for Big Hearts. If something resonated with you, post it, tell us, share it, tag us so we can comment and reply. We really want to continue this conversation, and so excited to see you next time.